On April 2nd, 1982, Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands, or the Malvinas, in the South Atlantic. It lost the brief war with Britain that followed. The conflict remains a point of dispute, especially after the British government announced an increase in defense spending in the region. CCTV's Joel Richards has this report.
Across Argentina, ceremonies were held for a conflict which took place more than 3 decades ago. Bitterness remains. In Buenos Aires, veterans and political organizations gathered by a memorial to remember the hundreds who died during the 74-day war.
La guerra de Malvinas es justa.
The Malvinas War is a just cause because regardless of who was in power at the time, it is the vindication of the cause against colonialism.
Argentina was governed by a military dictatorship when troops landed on the Malvinas, or Falkland Islands, 33 years ago. The conflict resulted in the death of 649 Argentine troops. The British armed forces sustained 255 casualties. The 2nd of April is a sensitive date in Argentina, but there has been an increase in tension between the two governments ahead of this anniversary. The British government recently announced an increase in spending of more than $400 million over the next 10 years for the defence of the islands, citing a continuing threat. In response, Argentina submitted a complaint to the United Nations accusing the British of warmongering. On Thursday, Argentine President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner demanded to hold talks with the UK rather than further militarisation of the region. Both countries have national elections this year, and one analyst says the issue of the islands is viewed very differently depending on what side of the Atlantic you're on.
Here there's a social consensus and the authority of the Constitution. So there's nobody who's looking to gain political advantage with this. But in the UK, there are people doing that, because it doesn't have the same weight. The Falkland Islands are administrated by the British Overseas Territories. It only has a marginal status.
Argentina is pushing for negotiations with the United Kingdom over sovereignty of the islands. Yet on the same day as the war anniversary, British companies announced they had found gas and oil in the South Atlantic, compounding this diplomatic standoff. Joel Richards, CCTV, Buenos Aires.